Hello, everyone. My name is Gregory, and this is the view from out here. I went to one of those Werner Erhard seminars back in the late 90s called The Forum. It was a pretty standard Tony Robbins type seminar helping people get in touch with their superpower and their individual potential that remains unused for the entire duration of most of our lives. But one thing from that seminar has stayed with me since then, and it was a section about distinctions. I've used it a lot in my life ever since. An example of what I mean might be defunding the police. You can favor defunding the police without hating the police or favoring a return to the Old West Dodge City model of rampant criminal behavior. The guy with the biggest gun controls everything. I favor defunding the police, but not because I wish to punish police officers, even the bad ones, by taking their money away. Punishing anyone is done at a higher grade, a higher pay grade. I can, however, make a distinction to favor defunding the police because there clearly needs to be a change in how the whole concept of law enforcement is currently perceived and executed. Law enforcement appears unwilling or unable to make the necessary changes themselves. Making distinctions is like sharpening the point of a pencil so that it doesn't write too wide of a swath to accurately communicate the intent of the writer. To understand law enforcement, I'd need to get a handle on what it is and what it was originally intended to accomplish. To do that, I'd need to circle back to how it all got started. What was the need and how was that need met? Research will point to two origins. One was to maintain peace among a growing and more diverse population of white people, some of whom may not have had the most proper intentions about how to go about the business of living. Others may have been pushed out to the edge of their survival and were left with few options other than misbehaving. The second was to find, capture, and return runaway slaves. Back then, white men would form posses or militias and get paid for returning wealthy white landowners as property. Our very first president appointed 13 federal marshals, one for each of the states, whose job it was to spearhead the concept of preserving peace through violence. George Washington was a military general, after all. To a man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I get that. I'm a writer. Everything looks like an essay to me. How we got from there to here is best summed up in a scene from A Few Good Men, the movie, A Few Good Men, where Colonel Jessup describes to the court martial what he does. He says, I have neither the time nor the inclination to explain myself to a man who rises and sleeps under the blanket of the very freedom that I provide, and then questions the manner in which I provide it. I would rather that you just said thank you and went on your way. Otherwise, I suggest you pick up a weapon and stand the post. Either way, I don't give a damn what you think you're entitled to. Now, there are two things historically that come into play here. There is a blue wall between the community and the police responsible for keeping the peace. Colonel Jessup goes on. Deep down in places you don't talk about at parties, you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. And he's right. Police protect us from unimaginable horrors. It takes a certain type of person to want to do that for us. I'm not going to do it. I don't have what it takes and I know it. But I rely every day on people who do. The second thing that the blue wall does is protect the police from us. That might be why, when under siege, they circle the wagons and up about what they feel they need to do to protect us. And therein lies the fulcrum of why I favor defunding the police. Here we have an organized armed militia that was born out of the protection and preservation of white supremacy being assigned the monumental task of being all things to all people. Never was that more on display than during the Black Lives Matter protest in downtown Portland, just a few miles that way. While actual boots were literally on the ground, it was crystal clear who was being protected and from whom. It was a Black Lives Matter protest. The people were on one side of the blue wall and the police and the government were on the other. Law enforcement's response to the Black Lives Matter movement was to counter with a symbol of their own. That symbol was the Blue Lives Matter flag. Now, the Blue Lives Matter flag was an American flag with the colors removed, so that what remained was a black and white American flag with a blue line running through the middle of it. The symbolism was starkly shocking to me. It said everything you need to know about why I favored defunding the police. A blue line dividing white and black. The Portland Police Bureau, whether intentional or otherwise, is racist. Here in Portland, we have partially defunded the police, and the result has been that we are in league with larger U.S. cities in the number of homicides and other violent felony crimes. The funding that was denied the police has been reallocated to other forms of community support, things like mental health crises, medical emergencies, and drug overdoses. More funding is also going to Neighborhood Watch and community development organizations whose intent is to stem the tide of the conditions that give birth to bad behavior before it gets to the point of being criminal. Crime prevention. It's going to take a while for the remodeling to settle in. It will settle when the community knows who to call for what type of emergency and what resources we can refer people to who we can see are struggling. Where the police will also know what concerns to leave to other resources so that they can concentrate their resources on what they are truly needed for. I favor defunding the police because in Portland, we are finally beginning to do something about what we are so conflicted about regarding how law enforcement works here. Unfortunately, the origins of law enforcement protecting and preserving white supremacy is still very much with us today. That is a matter for what must be our next step to coincide with our new model of community support, police training. There is no possible way that people of color in Portland commit more crimes than white people do. Yet they are arrested and convicted at a rate that far outpaces the same crimes among white people. I'm not suggesting that law enforcement arrests more white people or, for that matter, less people of color. I'm suggesting that they arrest more people who are committing crimes. But to do that, the police will need a change of perspective. If you concentrate your surveillance on people of color, that's what you're going to find. To a guy with a hammer, everything looks like a nail, remember? The population of people in Portland who are black is somewhere south of 10%. A tour of any jail in this area will clearly demonstrate that there's a huge problem, and it is about race. Penalties for the use of cocaine as opposed to crack, the same drug I might add that is simply administered differently, are another stark reminder of how law enforcement plays into race. Ultimately, the blue wall must come down. But there's a barrier to that happening that is intricately embedded in the police union contract. I'm a union guy. Unions are good. The other side of that coin is the Portland Police Bureau contract with the city of Portland. I believe that the Portland Police Bureau should have a contract with the city, and it should be ironclad. I haven't read it, but I do see the impact it has on accountability. I don't believe that the contract should include any section or clause that immunizes any member of the force from accountability to the laws that they are sworn to protect and defend. And those laws need to be protected and defended for everyone, without exception, full stop. The blue wall includes loyalty to the force and to one another. The good guys know who the bad guys are, but there's little they can do about that. This is life and death stuff, folks. Police officers need to be able to do their jobs with the full confidence of knowing that their fellow officers have their six, all of them, good or bad. Turning in a fellow officer for misbehavior is deeply entrenched behind the blue wall. Any officer that does it is bringing a world of hurt upon themselves, not the bad guys. They must turn a blind eye to such behavior or lose everything. They will never work in law enforcement again, will never be able to feel comfortable around another officer, and may even suffer physical damage to their person or worse. I don't have a solution for for that. But somehow we need to find a way to get to a place within law enforcement where stuff like honor and integrity are cool, and the people who have them are rewarded and even emulated for it. That is a steep mountain to climb if I ever saw one. In closing, I want to say that maybe you're not conflicted about law enforcement. Maybe you have a strong opinion on one side of the blue wall or the other, and are fine with that. But I am certainly conflicted. I understand why we need something like the concept of law enforcement. I love them individually, well, most of them anyway. But I'm an old white male. This whole thing is set up for my protection and defense. So yeah, I like them. But I hate them in the form of the gang that they have evolved into, and it doesn't really matter how or why that evolution came about. It's just wrong. So I favor defunding the police, and I appreciate you for staying with me so that I could tell you why. It's about making distinctions. I want to thank you for hanging with me so far. And if you're finding anything of value here, please take a second to like and subscribe with the buttons below. And don't forget about my books, Basic Video Production, Everything You Need to Know to Make Video Like a Professional, and my childhood memoir, Searching for Saint Germain, The True Story of the Gay Catholic Orphan. You'll find links to both books in the description below as well. Meanwhile, my name is Gregory, and this has been The View from Out Here. Much love.
Some kind.